Hello and welcome to ILTV's Israel Weekly, where we discuss the latest in Israel's geopolitical developments. I'm Aaron Porras, and with me today in the studio are Professor Moshe Amirav from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Dr. Mordechai Kedar from the Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies and Bar-Ilan University, and finally, Bar-Yoshafat, an attorney, public diplomacy expert, and lecturer. And today we'll be focusing on Argentina's recent decision to call for the arrest of former President Cristina Kirchner and the passing of a new law here in Israel through the first reading, which could prevent businesses from operating on the Sabbath. So first, current Senator and former President of Argentina, Cristina Kirchner, is ever closer to being arrested for her alleged role in covering up Iran's involvement in the 1994 Amia Jewish Center bombing. The attack in the heart of Buenos Aires, which is thought to be the work of Iranian-backed Hezbollah guerrillas, killed 85 people. Well, now a recently published document dating back to 2013 provides evidence of the alleged agreement between Kirchner and Iran, detailing how Iran would be absolved of involvement in the bombing in return for Iranian oil.
La presidenta Cristina Fernández de Kirchner le ordena a su canciller que hay que desinvolucrar, por los motivos que ahora voy a explicar, a Irán de la causa AMIA. Nada de lo que se hace acá es sin la directiva expresa de la presidenta. Esta no es una suposición por pensar que la presidenta maneja en general el gobierno del país. Está específicamente probada la cercanía y cómo se la consume.
So, Senator Kirchner, former President Kirchner, is still under immunity from the Senate in Argentina. So, in order for her arrest to be processed, that immunity needs to be lifted. Do you think that that'll happen?
Well, first of all, there's a special committee of the Senate that will decide if they will lift her immunity. That will take about 60 days. And even if that passes, then the two-thirds of the Senate has to agree on that, and they have 180 days for that. I think with the current political structure of Argentina, it's not very likely that it'll happen.
So you're saying even if they're very much willing to remove her her amnesty, you're saying that it could take at least half a year just to be done?
At least, just 2 months to see that the special committee will approve to lift her immunity, and then 180 days additionally for the Senate, and you will need two-thirds of the Senate, and that's really unlikely because of the current political structure of the parliament in Argentina.
I see. Now, Prosecutor Niesman, who actually we just heard from, was, as many know, murdered just hours before he was to appear in court and present his case in 2015. So could this also be turned into a murder trial, as well as treason?
I think if they will find this kind of evidence, I think it will be combined, because the story is so much intertwined together. So it might be that it is much bigger than we think now, what we know now. Mm.
Well, I think that it's time for the world, before it's an Argentinian domestic issue, the world should start dealing with this issue, because it's not only about Argentina, what happened there, it's about Iran and Iran's expansion and terror groups which Iran operates, and the Islamic triangle in the northern part of Argentina, which is still there. Means whatever it did in the 90s, it can do further on time. So this is why the world should start dealing with this, otherwise the world will get those problems from that triangle.
So do you think maybe that this whole thing is kind of this political charade to keep us away from looking in that direction?
Definitely. I think that Argentina here is afraid that the world will start asking questions about what happens inside Argentina and the ramifications of what happens inside Argentina to other countries in the world.
Wow. Okay. So this has nothing to do with solving a crime and doing what's right.
It has to do with this, but it's only the tip of the iceberg, because the part which so far the world is not aware of is much bigger.
Yeah. I think we have to remember we're looking at it from an Israeli perspective or a Jewish perspective, but she is accused of treason, regardless of the Jewish issue or the Israeli issue. What is allegedly assumed is that she had a deal with the Iranians, meaning she let them investigate the situation in order to get some sort of a deal with better oil prices. Sure. That's going against your own state. So forget about the Jews and the Israelis. That's a crime in Argentina that she's committed. Plus, it seems like she's not 100% kosher. Her bank account has grown about 10 times since before she became president and until today. So something is not kosher there. It doesn't mean that she is in charge of the murder or that she's in charge of, the bombing in Argentina, obviously. But it means that it needs to be investigated.
So do you think that treason is actually a little bit too harsh or not harsh enough then? of a charge here?
Well, we'll have to let the Argentinians to decide how they see it. But it seems like her whole behavior is a little bit weird, and so at least an investigation should take place. The thing is that, again, forget about the Jewish perspective. It's a very long legal process in order to lift her immunity. So, you know, the best case scenario, it'll be a long case, a long story that will end up only in a number of years and not in the near future. That's my estimation.
You mentioned earlier the possibility of this happening in the future, but do you think that there's a probability of something like this occurring in the future?
Of course, Iran takes advantage of every infrastructure which Iran has all over the world. We saw it in Kazakhstan, we saw it in India, we saw it in many places, and they actually take advantage of populations which either indigenous, and they are Shia, or immigrants, like in Argentina. And definitely they are a potential recruiting basis for Iran, and to hide people and to train people and everything which they want, because this triangle in the northern part of Argentina is almost a no man's land. It's their territory.
So what happens with this information now internationally against Hezbollah, against Iran, etc.?
It's between intelligence organizations, and I'm not sure that we want to deal with this.
Professor Amiro?
Yeah, I completely agree with him. We are in a kind of situation we know less than we will know in the future. We will know many things about Iran, which will help us in our advocating what is Iran today, what they are doing today. And they are doing it actually from for the last 20 or 30 years, trying to lead terror all over the world. And we hope that this time they will, again, we will find the facts and everybody will know.
I'll give you a good example.
Yeah, please.
Intelligence organizations all over the world suspect that the Iranians use the diplomatic cases in order to smuggle weapons, ammunition, and money, cash money, which is given to all kinds of terror organizations in those arenas. Means the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is being the messenger to take these things from place to place. So I know you cannot touch those diplomatic cases because they enjoy immunity. You cannot touch them, but organizations, security organizations, suspect that this is what they do.
Why would Israel not then kind of come into the mix and push for more information to be investigated and to be divulged?
Again, Israel has cooperations with many states in the world about terror, about preventing terror, about combating terror, all these things. These things are being done behind the scenes, and good so.
If I may add, we
please.
really want to make sure that the world will understand that Iran is a world's problem, not Israel's problem. We're all looking for the smoking gun, okay? If we can prove that there's a direct link, not just for Iran's proxies, which we all know, backs Hamas and Hezbollah, if we can prove that Iran is working in other means, working in different governments all over the world, it's good evidence to show that Iran is trying to meddle in world affairs and not for the good.
So doesn't this incident, at the very least, create some credence to Israel, to Israeli, I guess, criticisms on the world stage and Israeli assertions that Iran is overstepping their bounds? Doesn't this give some sort of credence to that?
Well, it will once the case will be solved. So it's too soon to say, but I would argue yes. If there's a link that you can connect between Iran and Hezbollah and the bombing in Argentina and the fact that the former president tried to silence the whole event, then yes, it shows that Iran's long arms is not just jihadist proxies, but also a lot more than that.
Would anything